The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good evening, listeners. So thrilled to be with you all, and I want to share with you. It was amazing about your comments last time, as well as the emails we received. Thank you for that. And hope each and every one of you had a great Thanksgiving. And I want to share, I'm very grateful for each and every one of you and having this platform to talk to you, connect with you, and also grateful for Rebel, who makes the show possible. So folks, one of the things I am going to request you to do, if you have not got your copy of Expert to Influencer, especially if you are an entrepreneur or if you're a professional or a CEO, where you want everything distilled down for you on how to create a brand that stands the test of time, get your copy today, because the profits from Expert to Influencer, available on Amazon, goes to COVID impacted entrepreneurs. So folks, without further ado, I am going to invite our guests, and we are going to have a special conversation today, a tough conversation about the topics that we don't want to talk when we are at the dinner table or sitting down with friends. And it's important that we do that. So welcome, folks.
Hey, Divya.
Aloha, Divya.
Aloha. Welcome, Scott and Jenny.
Thank you. So good to be with you.
And welcome, Deb.
Thank you so much, Divya. It's an honor to be with this group. Know Scott and Jenny already, and we're going to have fun.
Yes, definitely. It's awesome to have all of you guys here.
Thank you.
So what we are going to do is we are going to take a quick peek in your childhood and see if you remember any remarkable moments from there. So Deb.
I think in my childhood, I was a military brat. My dad was in the military. Yes, and I was the youngest of, I had two older brothers, and I had to fend for myself. So I learned pretty quick. You got to pay attention to what's going on and learn as much as you can from them. And my father was in the Korean War, and it was right after that he met my mother, but he also went to Vietnam, which was pretty tough on our family to have someone leave home and having to survive. And I will say some kids acted up. I was not in that category. But, those kind of things you remember, and then you say, okay, how did you cope with that? What were the things that you did? And my mother was very strong. And both my mother and father never limited me about gender, and I was able to accomplish what I wanted. I had horses. I think when you do something in your life that has risk and you learn how to work with other things, like horses are kind of hard to work with. They know when you don't like them or you're afraid of them, and you have to be, get that kind of feeling. And being independent just in a family, that even if you're in your own pod, like we're in our pods now, you have your own pod and you're still going to be able to survive and thrive. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of early ones. And serving others, always about serving others, deep inside all of us in my family.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I like how you got to play to your fullest, and that's awesome. So, how about you, Scott and Jenny?
It was interesting when you asked that. The first thing that came to my mind, I was 8, and that was when I remember President Kennedy getting shot. And that was very impactful. It just kind of time stopped still at that moment in time. And I wasn't old enough to really understand the impact of that, but it was profound. I remember it. And then beyond that, I grew up in a suburban home and played sports my whole life: basketball, baseball, football. I mean, our whole world revolved around my sports, my brother's sports, and my sister who cheerleaded for all of our sports. So we were connected to the community through that venue, and that remained all the way through high school and before we got into college. Jen?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's so many moments that have marked my childhood, and in particular, the chance to travel abroad and to see other cultures completely changed my life. So in the late 60s, I was not aware that people were homeless growing up in the United States. And so to go where there were beggars on the street, literally pulling on your clothes and trying to stop you, it just completely changed my appreciation for getting to grow up in the USA in a way that has never left me.
That's good.
Yes, that's very profound. And Scott, what you mentioned about sports is such a wonderful thing to have because it brings people across nations, it brings people across borders, and such a wonderful thing to have as you're growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenny, I can see where you're coming from. It's about having that gratitude for what we have. It makes life so much more rich. So let's take a look into Scott and Jenny. If you would like to share a thumbnail version of your journey and where you are today, and what do you do?
Okay, quick. I'll try to make it quick because it's a pretty detailed and kind of a long journey. It's been well, we've been married for almost 35 years.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
We met and married in 20 days. So it's one of those fast romances, and we've endured, which I know is, not the norm. But Jenny met me in the middle of my mess, and she had the courage to meet me where I was at and to challenge me where I was at, and inspired me to keep moving on, to try again. I went through kind of a rough divorce, had 2 young kids. I was an LA County Sheriff's deputy, lost my career because of poor choices on my behalf. I kind of imploded and self-medicated and lost everything. And I was facing some pretty severe consequences because of that. And it propelled us into this arena that we've been in now for 33 years to help really the lost, the people who are struggling. They don't find a way out, where families are afraid, they're fear-based, and they don't have the communication skills to address their loved one in an effective way to motivate them to say yes to help. So we have been on this crusade to raise people's bottom up, not have them hit, this crash and burn moment, to prevent loss of life, loss of relationship, loss of careers, loss of freedom. And so we have been just privileged and blessed to help literally thousands and thousands of families all over the country and outside of the country.
Have tough conversations.
Yeah. Tough and healthy conversations.
Right.
So in a nutshell, that's kind of, there's a whole lot behind all of that, but
that was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. How about you, Jenny?
So I was going along and very, very good in my own skin. And he definitely disrupted my world. And I took a risk and a chance to marry someone who was really in a serious amount of trouble, facing 6 to 8 years in prison. And so I was not an expert yet at having tough conversations. And so in my 20s, meeting a guy with that kind of story, I thought, well, you're handsome, you'll make a good pen pal. And I'm a career girl and you could wreck my career. So I was really adept at keeping my problems with him a secret. And literally, I literally, it's so funny because you were an undercover cop and I became an undercover wife in the sense that I didn't want people to know anything about our personal business.
Mm-hmm.
And so literally he did time. He went through with 100% of my support without me pulling in my support network. And so looking back over my shoulder, what I have come to realize in my journey is that it's so much more beautiful to share your journey, even if your journey's
messy,
embarrassing. I was going to say embarrassing. So here we are helping families who are facing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And what a delight to take something that I wish I'd done better and help others do better because of our understanding.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful story. And I gotta share, it's important to share stories.
Mm-hmm.
So Angeline from New York is saying hello, and she shared that your story is inspiring, Scott and Jenny.
Thank you.
And Deb, I'd like to invite you to share your story as well.
Thank you. Before I do, I just want to say Carefrontations, the program that you do as you're helping people, because I'm not sure the listeners heard that yet. It's just awesome. It's helping people make better choices. And we are very much of similar minds. I got beat up in different ways. I told you about how being confident, when you're a senior in high school, you're pretty confident. I can do a lot of things. And in my case, my family and my brothers prepared me to be beat up even more. And so I made a choice to be in the first class with women at the military academy at West Point, and went from being, pretty well liked and doing well and all these things. And then people hated me and were yelling at me all the time. And it was like, but I took a long view. It's very hard when you're 18 years old to take a long view, to say these are things that I'm going to do that are tough. But I think that if I can make through it, then I'm going to have more choices, because I'm a person who wants a lot of choices. And if you want to have a lot of choices, then you have to stick it in and do things that are tough. So I did that. I ended up staying 34 years in uniform. When I entered, I would never have said that. And at the time, they didn't think women could do anything. And even when I graduated 4 years later at West Point, it was a social revolution. It has been. It's continued to be. If you go back to the history of women in the workforce, this was kind of breaking new ground. It was trying to really put us on more equal footing with everyone, because they then integrated all the military. So I'm thinking I'm leaving West Point. Oh, good. I'm joining the regular Army, and it's going to just be so much easier than this. No. It was as bigger social revolution, because they had just, within the year or two, they just started integrating women to the regular militaries. And so it was not an easy career, but it was incredibly rewarding when you could make a difference, when you can do those changes. And by staying there and being an officer, I learned from a mentor early on. I talk about him all the time. I mean, he became my number two dad. And if he hadn't been there explaining the ropes to me and coaching me along the early days, I'm not sure I would have been quite as successful. I mean, he would say things that literally my jaw would be on the floor. I'd say, they did what? Because you're responsible for people, as you know, 24/7, and they do crazy stuff. And we all do, under the right circumstances. And so we had to figure out, how do you lead people like that? And then I was given increasingly bigger roles in leadership that concluded years later commanding in combat a $2.1 billion construction program in the middle of the surge, where fighting was everywhere. And we were supposed to do projects where people were dying. And I learned that everything I had learned from my childhood to my West Point days, to what I learned in the military, all of them constantly being yelled at, tossed down, thought, oh my gosh, I got to pick myself back up again. Divorce. I went through 2 divorces in that time, and then luckily met someone he's actually a West Pointer. When I said I'd never go out with another West Pointer, again, talk about your things. I'd never go out with a West Pointer, no military guys. And I ended up meeting the man of my dreams. And that's why you have to continue to open your heart and be openly vulnerable, even though everyone else is telling you shouldn't do that. thankfully didn't listen. We went through 9/11. I mean, things happen. I just want to emphasize we're always going to have a crisis. People think post-COVID is going to be easy. I don't think so. It's not going to be easy. And that's why my journey, last year I founded a company just getting started really in rolling out content, but a company called Mentally Tough Women. And it's to say that our normal reactions aren't helpful. Our natural reactions aren't helping us. We have to be skilled in being able to deal in tough conversations like you are, tough conversations and having these things so that you can take a look at the same situation, same set of facts, and be able to make better choices and be able to have those better outcomes. And so that's what I do. I want people to get mentally tough.
Love it.
Well, it's first of all, I want to thank you for your service, because it's because of you, our heroes, that we have the freedom. So really appreciate it and very thankful for you, Deb.
Thank you. Thank you. So many went before, but thank you. Everybody has to do it. We're all in this together.
Right.
We have to work together.
Absolutely. And our listeners have also said that, they applaud your service, and we have had stream of questions coming in. So Deb, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as they're related to you. So one of the things that came up was, when did you join the military to protect yourself?
Did I join the military to protect myself?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I understood it. I wanted choices. And some people told me about West Point. My father had actually gone there, but I'd never visited. But I was staying with a lady. I told you my dad and mom moved a lot. Well, they moved my senior year. So
Oh, wow.
I always tell people they did leave a forwarding address. And then and going to West Point, the lady I stayed with had 2 sons at West Point. And one of the big surprise, they told me I could ride horses there. And I thought, and my brother had gone to another school. He had a ROTC scholarship, and we affectionately say he's been wildly successful. So I say this, but he majored in partying and girls. And I said, you know what, if I'm going to go to college, I'm going to do this first. And if it doesn't work out, then I know I'll be better off. I will have learned something from the experience. And so I was determined to graduate. I wanted to graduate a longer view, and that they could throw a lot at me, and I was just going to see. But I got to tell you, I learned how to protect myself, because when you get slammed and surprised, it's usually not from something you expect. It's maybe from someone who you think know you, or their family or something, and they say this unkind comment, or you're trying to accomplish something. And so nobody taught me that. I had to learn it the hard way, how to be able to stay positive, how to stay focused on what I wanted instead of dragged down, which we can do. And I know how to go there. I know very colorful language, just like everybody else, but I choose not to use it, except on myself, maybe. That's my confession. But that's really where I'm at. And so the long answer is no, I don't think I did it to protect myself, but I sure as heck learned how to deal with crises and also dealing with the unexpected and bounce back and work and love people. I think that's what people miss is that, and I know Carefrontations knows this, is that love has just been held back with this wall of mistrust. And once you can break down those walls, it's just like we miss hugging each other. I miss hugging you and seeing you, but it's always there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's what you answered and what you shared is very profound. So one very quick question. Did your brothers go to military?
My brother, I told you the one who majored in partying and girls. Yes. And he went to the Naval Academy. He went to the Naval Academy he went the day before, but the same year that I went to West Point. So we had the Navy, we were already competitive in swimming and everything else, but this was the Navy Army rivalry is bigger than anything. So, poor loser, poor winner whenever he won the game. Yes. So he did. My other brother went for a short time into the Army, but he's a school teacher now.
Oh, that's awesome. Teaching our next generation to be the leaders is also
Absolutely.
very critical and important.
Mhm.
So Scott and Jenny, tell me, you mentioned you shared your life story, but what was it that propelled you to move into tough conversations area?
Wow. Well, really, just the experience, the own personal experience of recovery, propelled me into this arena. And what I found, when Deb was talking, the word that came to my mind was strategy. I think too often we don't have a strategy when we're going to have those tough conversations. We kind of let our emotions carry us, and I believe our emotions are stronger than our intellect when our emotions are on high. And so to be able to have a strategy implemented, it can, at least for us, it allows people to have that emotional experience, yet say the things that need to be said in a healthy way. So, again, my recovery is what fuels me. We have, for the whole 4 years we've been doing this work, we're kind of against what the norm is. The norm says that you have to let people kind of hit their own bottom, take their own course. That person has to want help for help to be not only accessible, but to be effective. And we have countless experiences and examples of that not being 100% true. It's a partial truth, but it's not a whole truth. So we are educating people that they actually, and Deb, again, it's the power of love and the power of unity. When you have a group of people who come together in the name of love and say the tough things, which what I mean by tough things, the truth. When we speak the truth in a way that it can be received without judgment, persecution, condemnation, threat, shame, or guilt, it is powerful. In fact, you can be actually more direct if you own your truth, own your perspective, and that's the key too. It's helping people learn how to own whatever that is they want to say.
But I just want to go back to what you asked, which is what fuels, if I understood you want to know what fuels us doing this. And we have had more fuel than I really wanted to have, to tell you the truth, because we've heard that old saying that the shoemaker's kids have no shoes, and so on and so forth. And so we have had trouble in River City. And we have had personal experiences, and we have so many skeletons in the closet that the closet was too small. So we had to go rent a big warehouse. So we've got daughters and mothers and just nephews. And, when you bury someone in their 20s, and that was preventable, when you bury someone in their whatever year, it's always too soon. It's always, if it was preventable, then it was too soon.
Yeah.
And so the personal stories fuel us, because each person, that's like my mother, your mother, that's like your nephew, my nephew, that we treat each person who we help as if they were our own family members.
And just a real live example was when I intervened on a woman in her 60s. It was a beautiful intervention. Everybody cried. It was wonderful. She said yes to help. Well, she comes out of the bedroom with a gun in her hand, but the cylinder is open. And she walks up to me, and I put my hand underneath the cylinder. She pops the bullets in my hand, and she said, "I had no idea that you all loved me as you did. Today after lunch, I was going to kill myself." And so,
hence the loaded gun.
Yeah. And so, it's countless examples like this that people are just suffering in silence because people are ill-equipped and afraid to speak truth.
And they're reacting instead of responding. And so, Deb, in your training, Scott, in your police training, you didn't train to be a first reactor. Mm-hmm. You trained to be a first responder. And I think that's really the nutshell of any tough conversation, is to take your own pulse and, am I reacting, which means am I crazy, or am I responding, which means potentially that I'm gracious.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And,
Beautiful, beautiful stories, and saving a life, how you can't have much more meaning and significance added to your life than what you guys are doing. So thank you for doing what you are doing. Now the question comes, you said something very profound, first responder. And they go through literally very disciplined regimen, and these are the trainings that have been in place for years, and that has been tried and tested over the time. So, and I'll come back to you. So Deb, in your experience, you have been in military, and now you mentioned, you stuck for a long period and then you moved out. So experiencing both the lives, how can people train when they don't have the training to be a first responder in their personal lives?
Yes, it's a great question. And I think that I'll go back to what Jenny and Scott were talking about. Reacting works against us. That's what people first need to know. Our natural reactions say stress is bad, and we're going to react with our survival thinking, which is fight, flight, or shut down. The shutdown, we are having a massive crisis with people in depression, shutting down, silencing, and then doing harm to themselves or somebody else. And so they've been told that stress is bad. And in first responders, just like in the military, now I was actually in charge of keeping people safe in buildings during 9/11. I was writing the regulations to keep people safe in buildings. So this is a question I have pondered a lot. And you have to know that there's a before an incident happens, there's during an incident when it's ongoing and you're in the middle of it, and there's a period after an incident. Each one of those Scott talk strategies, you have got to be absolutely skilled in the middle of it. You want to prevent it, and those are the things you can do, but I'm hearing them, and they're always in the middle of it. And in the middle of it, oh, by the way, the rules really aren't any different. It's just that you've thrown them out the window because you're reacting. You are not coming from a place of love. See, love is the answer, but nobody ever told me it's an extreme sport. If you don't have the shield, if you don't have the things that I show you, the helmet represents wisdom. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and war, but it's the wisdom we have to protect. And so the number one thing that I would say that spells the difference between being able to handle stress and not handle stress is, how do you come from that place of wisdom? And that's why I teach extreme stress courses. The number one task you can do, breathe fully, breathe deeply. Pause is the next one. People under extreme stress, they feel compelled. The reaction in them wants to do something. And yes, something needs to be done, but not like that, as they know. And when they get a chance to get a little distance to look at it, their wisdom comes into play. They pretty well know when they give that space what to do, but when they're in the survival mode, things take over. It's an automatic knee-jerk reaction. I call it, for the lesser kind, not life-threatening, but it's kind of like, and I don't want to say bad things about Tourette's, but Tourette's is, it's in you and you're going to blurt it out. And that's kind of what happens if you don't give that space. So you want to be skillful in the middle and answering the question, skillful in the middle. You have to be able to breathe so that you're giving oxygen to your brain. You can only last 3 minutes without it. And people go into hyperventilate mode and they're starving their brain cells and killing themselves. And then being able to come from a place of questioning wisdom, which is not, how can I destroy this person or how can I hurt myself? But how can I use this situation in order to achieve what I want?
It's good, Deb.
No, really. Very profound. When you talked about breathing, it does make sense, because what happens is, coming from a neuroscience background, amygdala hijack. So many times, folks, you gotta have self-compassion for yourself too. So let's say there are a lot of people who reach out and say that it just happens. I don't mean to say things when I'm experiencing anger, and it just happens. It's not that I want to say it. It's not intentional. So one of the things, as you mentioned, Deb, is about breathing and having that strategy that, okay, anytime I go in this mode, start practicing. It could just be, as you're breathing, I'm going to take 5 or 6 breaths, and literally counting 1 breath, 2 breaths. And folks, what happens is that if you focus on something else, your brain can only focus on one thing. So if you start focusing on breathing, you'll automatically be shifted. And it's not going to happen in a day.
if I can add, I know as my heart comes up, my heartbeat goes up. When you know when you're starting to go into that mode, I know you go when you even in the interventions, no matter how many you've done, your heartbeat is going up. But you can use that to your advantage.
Mm-hmm.
You can put it to work for you, just like someone giving a speech. Talking to you for some people is so terrifying. I am certain. We're used to doing these things and battling tough situations, but just speaking in front of other people is terrifying. When your heartbeat starts racing, that's not bad. That's telling you, okay, I need to be alert. I don't need to react, as Scott said.
Right.
Absolutely. And having a strategy, whatever works, whether if you have just, having a fist, creating an anchor that's going to ground you in that moment, it's very, very critical. It could be just a bracelet that you are wearing, or it's a necklace, something that you can go back to break that moment, because that's the critical place, that critical juncture. Once you break that cycle, you'll find that you can keep on training and keep on moving. So Scott and Jenny, what would you like to add to that? Coming into the steps and shoes of first responders.
Well, I've got so many thoughts that popped into my head, Deb, when you were talking. For one that's kind of funny in a sense is that people are human beings. We're so predictable. We are so incredibly predictable. And if you know what kind of situation you find yourself in over and over again, that predictability is even more profound. So that was one thought that came to my head, is just know that if you train a certain way over and over again, you don't have to think your way through it. You just respond through it and you'll get through it. Number two, the thought that came to my head, I tell families all the time, is they're worried about the what if. They can just get so obsessed. Well, what if this happens or that happens, or they say this or they say that? And I typically say, well, I never have, nor will I ever scratch the side of my head and go, oh, I didn't think about that. You're right. You shouldn't go today to treatment. You shouldn't get help. It's like, that's not going to happen, because we are like Navy SEALs. We're going in to rescue somebody and we are not coming back empty-handed. No is not an option. So to have that mentally tough, mindset to not take no, to also to be patient. I mean, silence is huge. That is such a, I hate to say the
tool.
word. I was going to use the word weapon.
Say tool.
But yeah. I mean, it really works. It works if you can just be quiet for a moment. Let that silence work. And so those are some thoughts.
I want to say that the reason that silence is such a friend in the middle of conflict or a tough conversation is because you can say anything, and you just have to slow down enough to say it with love, to say it with empathy, to say it with compassion, to say it where you're not ever, ever, ever trying to overpower someone, make someone agree, make someone, do it your way, think your way. You're trying to confide in people and share with people and invite them in. And so it isn't that I'm going to overpower you. Like when you said, like that could scare somebody, how you said, no is not an option. We're like a Navy SEAL. So I agree with him 1,000%, but it's because I want to empower that person to say yes, and not that I'm going to overpower them and make them say yes. Does that make sense?
Well, here's a great, we say this all the time. It's not, we don't want to call people out. We actually want to call them in. And too often we make it about ourselves. And so to have the outward focus, like what you're saying,
like what I'm saying,
it allows us to calm down a little bit and not get offended or get defensive if it gets a little escalated. If we don't make it about ourselves, it can make that conversation so much smoother. We just don't add any fuel to the fire that's being emotionally created.
Right. Like someone can say something and you can feel totally offended, or they could say the exact same thing. And if it was said in a different spirit, then it would be receivable. So I compare it, if what I was saying, if our words, so if the listeners can picture all your words, all your opinions, everything you want to say, everything you want to change, if it was physical, like food, we just had Thanksgiving. So picture the big silver platter and all your words and thoughts, it's all on a big platter. So when you speak, are you shoving this platter at someone's throat, at someone's face, in someone's mouth, and you want to shove it down the throat? Or are you keeping the platter tight to your chest and confiding in them? This is what's on my platter. In other words, this is how I see it. And if we would take that stance, it changes how people will let their guard down to hear whatever it is you want to share.
That's good.
Absolutely. Powerful, powerful tips. So here's a question for you, Deb. Now, it's time of holidays. People are in whatever form and fashion. Some people have had virtual Thanksgiving. Some people have had small gatherings. People are going to meet. And the tensions have been rising high for past several months because it sometimes feels like, as one of my clients was telling me, that I feel like as if we are living in a sci-fi movie. So now people have gathered together.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a tough situation, but the whole environment is charged. So just imagine, a family is sitting at the table having a holiday dinner, and someone, whether it's a dad or mom, or son doing that to mom or dad, or daughter doing it to brother, you're just not going to, I don't know the situation, but what's happening is your loved one is literally breaking you down and blaming you, shaming you, and putting you into guilt. How would you respond to that situation?
I want to think, at this point, I need to say what mental toughness looks like. Mental toughness means that no matter what life throws at you, you give your best. And the second piece of that is you always believe in and speak to the best in others. I call it, you're talking to the hero inside of them. You're not speaking to what's presenting itself to you, which is garbage. That's like garbage talk. And when Scott and Jenny were talking about those words that they use, you have to be incredibly disciplined to choose your words carefully to respond in a way that's not blaming, that's not going in survival mode or triggering that. But you don't control anybody else. The only person you control is you. And there's two ways you can approach that conversation if they're saying it to you, but you have to do it with the opposite. You have to do it with joy, and you have to do it from a happy place. And that's hard because you want to choke them. I mean, I'm not saying you don't want to choke them. You don't want to get something to silence them. And sometimes you might even picture something not like that. But I can only say I had someone who was standing in front of me. And it did get me in more trouble, so I have to caveat that. But he was standing in front of me. He was screaming at the top of his lungs, doing just that, spitting in my face. And all I could think of is I looked at him, and I wasn't allowed to react because I was an underclass person. So you know, the rules are so you don't speak. They speak to you no matter how bad they were. And I just thought to myself, your breath is so bad. No wonder you don't get any dates. Your mind has to go someplace that is going to rescue you and keep you at your best.
And using humor. Bravo for using humor. And that is so good.
You have to be careful because I don't think I'm funny, but I know in my head I have to be funny to myself. Right. And I know that the more I can keep a either expressionless or a loving look, just a welcoming. But I have learned a couple tips. If someone's really yelling you, one reaction you can do is you can take your hand, and in many cultures this is accepted, you can cover your heart. Mm-hmm. Because if you really start feeling pain, and I felt that when people have said hurtful things to me, even those I love, they say hurtful things and you can feel the pain in your chest, is to put your hand up. And if it's possible, like if they're like frontal to you, you can literally turn to the side like they do in martial arts and try to get that energy. It is energy. Oh, by the way, we have energy, and that's why the neuroscience, the mirror neurons, and all the other things. If you want to fight your natural instincts, which I said again are bad, you want to be able to let that energy fly by you so that you can maintain your composure in those situations. And then think of one thing you love about the person. Just think of one thing. Don't worry about the 100 things you don't like. Remember that song that says, a million reasons not to, and you only need one good reason, to do it. And you can overcome a lot if you can just focus on what it is that you love. Like I thought Jenny was going to talk about food, that maybe you put some poison in the food, sprinkling something in it. And I would just say, you just want to clear out any of that. That takes a lot of discipline and a lot of skill, especially under fire, when you're under fire like that. But you want to remember what's most important to you. Is it most important for you to be right or to make things better? The fact is, you could be right in the facts and you could make things horribly worse.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
So one quick question came up, that what would have happened if you had spoken up when that person was yelling at you?
You speak to, not to, I hate you, I don't like you. You can speak to, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm doing my best. I love you very much. Because usually it's a family member, and you try to remind them of times that, we used to really enjoy each other. How do we get back to that? How do we get back to really having fun together? We could talk about this later if you really want to do it. But right now we're remind them, we're with family. I love you, and just stay on the up and up. I'm sure Scott and Jenny have many more ways to do this, but the idea is you just want to come from that place of love. And I said, it's an extreme sport. You have to have a shield sometimes, so that while you're trying to engage them, I also have a sword somewhere here. And when I bring out the sword, it's not to skewer somebody. It's to pin them a little bit so that they can pay attention to what I'm saying. Because many times those people, you can think of them as a wall of noise. They're a wall of noise around them. So you can always think of some way that's going to cut through that. And what I found through crisis communications that I've taken is that it really is about caring. I would say, Divya, boy, I really care about your family. How are they? You could flip it. You can redirect the conversation in a way that could do it. So those are just a handful of strategies. And Scott and Jenny, like I said, I'm sure have a mountain of them.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing, Deb. And now we are going to ask another tough question. We're nearing to the end of our show, so we'll be keeping that in mind. So Scott and Jenny, let's say you are having a conversation. It may be over the phone, it may be in person, it may be on Zoom or virtual. And now you're an independent. And yes, this is political, folks. The etiquette is we don't talk about politics. We are going to talk about it. We're not going to take sides. We are going to talk about it. You're an independent, and let's say one of your friends is a diehard member of one of the political parties. And God forbid, a conversation happens where you have not sided with them, he or she, on one of the topics, and now they just kind of go off at you. And it's like, oh my goodness, how can you not see this? And I've had these things happen to me. How can you not see this? And they're defending their candidate and X, Y, and Z, what's happening. So how would you respond to that?
So one thing I learned a long, long time ago is to try to take the word why out of my vocabulary. Because if I ask somebody, why do you think that way? It causes instant defense. So it escalates the situation often. And instead, I want to replace that. Can you tell me the reasons you think that way? So one thing I learned in law enforcement is to become a really good question asker. And if I ask the right questions, I help the person actually work their way through it. And in the same time, I'm understanding their perspective. And really, the bottom line is we all want to be understood. We all want to be affirmed. And we can only do that if we take the road of humility. And so a humble road for me would be, I'm not going to try to win them over on my perspective. I'm going to allow them to tell me their perspective, but I want to evoke thought. I don't want them to just parrot what they heard on, the local news channel. And maybe they'll change my mind, maybe they won't. But if I'm going to then respond with my thoughts on the political views, I'm going to remember to always frame it with I think or I feel. Again, I'm owning my perspective. And
his
so
platter is clutched to his chest.
well, it's just gently on my lap.
I know. I knew you'd correct me, but I'm just saying that's a remedy for the times that we're in right now. Is we're not allowing people to have, you're wrong if you're not in my camp.
Right.
That is just not going to work if we're going to come together in compassion.
And another thing I always tell people too is no one glued my feet to the floor. Nobody said I had to stay here and listen to that. So I can respectfully say I'm not in the right headspace to really talk about that right now. Not because of politics, but it's something personal that's going on in my life. And so I'm just going to, excuse myself from this conversation. Maybe we can pick it up another time. I'd be happy to.
Mm-hmm.
And so same thing on the phone. No one glued that phone to my ear. I can take it away. Nobody says I have to answer. I can say, I don't know, or I'm not willing to respond to that right now. I want to give that some thought. That really helps and Debbie had said that, just slow it down, be patient, take a step back. It's a way to put that sword on the chest without them even knowing it.
Well, and to your point, Deb, how you said, think of something that you do like about them, even though that's hard when you want to choke them or disagree with them. That is so beautiful. And it's like, I can hear your passion. I'm not on the same page, but wow, you have my respect. And so that would not work unless it was authentic.
Right.
It would not work unless it was sincere.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously this person is telling you, whatever this is that they're telling you, and they're passionate about it. And so that's such a good reminder. I love that you said that. And I hope so many people take that as a takeaway. Like what is good about them that I can say or think at this moment, which diffuses my negativity? Because at the heart of every conversation, it's when we can be so open that we're respecting the other person, even if we disagree with the other person. And that's how we're going to get along going forward. And it's the opposite is how we're not going to.
Well, it reminds us too, when we
could continue this conversation, such a great conversation and so many insights. And time is running out. So I would love to invite you to share your contact information. Scott and Jenny, why don't you all go? And then I'll have Deb share hers.
Thank you.
We have a toll-free number. It's 844-588-3267. And our website is carefrontations.com. That is a made-up word. Comes from the word confrontations, a word we dislike. So we took that word and we flipped it to carefrontations.
Beautiful. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
And now you know why I love Scott and Jenny. A word means everything. So for me, I'd love I can send your listeners a document. It's what I call stress mythbusters. Those things that are absolutely pushing us to make really bad choices and reactions. And you can get it at our website, which is www.mentallytoughwomen.com. And you can check the website out and do the /free gift. And they'll also get the link in that document when they're sent it. They'll get the link to the free course, How to Handle Extreme Stress, which the first step is breathe. Things that people say, these are the untruths. They say breathing's natural. No, it's not under stress. It's not. So
Deb,
I love being with you, Divya.
And Deb, thanks for that reminder. And on our website, that reminds me, I should have mentioned that you can get a free PDF called The 3 Mistakes Well-Meaning People Make.
Yes. Wonderful. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Divya, for this opportunity to continue to grow. You're helping us achieve our goals to get us out to a bigger audience. And thank you and congratulations to your many successes.
Yes.
We met you in that format where you just stood out as being someone with a caring heart. And all your things that you do is about helping people. You don't separate your personal life and your work life. Right. You can have both. But you do have to be skilled and you have to understand what's really going on. Yeah. So thank you for giving that to your audiences.
Yeah, we agree with that.
Well, I really appreciate each and every one of you. And Deb, thank you for your kind words. It really means a lot, especially coming from wonderful people like you. So thank you, Scott and Jenny. Thank you, Deb. Keep on doing the work you're doing. We need it right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, audience. I love you guys, and keep on growing and keep on shining your light and be the best you can. And of course, thank you, Rebel, for being with us. Take care and be thankful this holiday season.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time.